Welcome to Lead Her Higher, a podcast sharing the stories of women transforming education through leadership. I'm your host, Emily MacLean. Today's conversation is with three incredible women. Jessica Delgado, lower school principal at the International Community School of Abidjan in Côte d'Ivoire. Maki Nishihara, elementary school principal at Santa Cruz Cooperative School in Bolivia. And Julie Villers, elementary school principal at the Anglo-American School of Sofia in Bulgaria. Our conversation is all about resilience and the power of connection, both across cultures and within trusted circles of support. You're going to love their insights on embracing uncertainty, leading with authenticity, and the leadership traits women often underestimate in themselves. Let's get into it. Let's start with her story. Today, I am thrilled to welcome three incredible women who are leading and inspiring teams across the globe to our podcast: Jessica Delgado, Maki Nishihara, and Julie Villers. Welcome to the Lead Her Higher podcast.
Hello.
Hi, Emily.
Hi.
Well, ladies, I'm so excited to have you. Each of you have not only shaped learning communities around the world, but you've also formed a really powerful friendship with each other. One that's rooted in trust, shared purpose, and a deep understanding of what it means to lead with heart. What I love about your story is that even though you live and work in different countries around the world, you've really built this circle of connection that reminds us that leadership doesn't have to be lonely. It can be collaborative, it can be supportive, and it can be joyful. So I'm so excited to dig into that today with your shared story. But to begin, let's start with your individual stories, the journeys that brought each of you to where you are today. So what's been each of your leadership journey to date? Jessica, we'll start with you.
Sure. So for me, my leadership journey, I believe, is ongoing. It's lifelong. And if I had to pinpoint any experiences along the way that have shaped me, I go back to my early childhood. So I'm an identical twin. She also works in education. And I believe that being an identical twin really created a natural path for me to leadership. I was confident and assertive, and the twin who always naturally took charge. When we were young, I was outgoing, outspoken, comfortable in social situations, more so than she was. And so I took on a leading role. I communicated for both of us. I represented our needs. I made our decisions, and I stood up for what we believed. So I think I began practicing and strengthening leadership skills at quite an early age. My parents also both modeled skills that I believe are key to leadership. My dad was American, born and raised by immigrant parents in New York City, and my mom is from Chile. And as a family, we moved from Paraguay to Spain to New York, and they modeled strong work ethic, how to be flexible and adapt to new cultures and countries, and doing all of that with a sense of adventure and curiosity and wonder. And I believe I bring all of that to my leadership.
Thank you so much, Jessica. It's wonderful how much your family has had an influence on you. Maki, what about you?
For me, my leadership journey really started with my own background. Growing up in two different international schools as a third culture kid helped me understand what it's like to move between cultures and adapt to new environments. The experience helped me to connect with, or helps me right now even, to connect with students and parents in international schools as well as teachers where I work today. I often see where misunderstandings come from when there are misunderstandings between the two parties. And I have had child safeguarding cases where I had to be in the middle of like, okay, in this culture, this happens. In another culture, that happens. And so I think we need to actually understand this part first to understand this. So it's been rewarding in one way, but it sometimes is kind of like, oh, I see this happening. And so I have to actually help them out. I've also had many different roles in schools, from middle school foreign language teacher to teaching assistant to a paraeducator and later a classroom teacher. So I believe that each experience gave me a better understanding of students' needs and how to support each teacher because I've been in their roles before. All that has really helped me as a leader, and I am also growing as a leader now.
We're always on that journey, aren't we? And I think your students are so lucky to have you with that unique perspective of being a third culture kid. Julie, what about your leadership journey? How's that been for you?
For me, education was always on the table. Both my parents were teachers. I'm the oldest of three siblings. And so But I also have a younger brother. He's 13 years younger. And so I was kind of his second mom. So being the responsible one, it made me want to be in education. And then I also taught for 20 years before moving into leadership. Like all the aspects of the school was always so interesting to me. So knowing, the bigger picture, how things work, how decisions are made. So I was a team leader, and I just always volunteered to take on roles that were outside of my teaching role. And so after 20 years, then I decided that my expertise and perspective as a woman, a French woman in international English speaking schools, then could serve a bigger circle than just my class. And so, that made me want to pursue a leadership career. And also, to be frank, I've been in many international schools. I've had some great inspiring leaders and some that were a little disconnected. And so having leaders that I couldn't relate to made me realize that my voice could benefit a school. Seldom were leaders from an earlier background or even women. And so I think for me, that was a little bit of a push I needed to gain confidence that I think my voice had something to bring to the table.
Thanks so much, Julie. It's interesting how you said that the leaders that you see really shaped who you wanted to be as a leader and maybe also who you didn't want to be. So you've all had such diverse experiences and you've led in different schools in different countries, and that comes with so much growth. So how did moving into new cultural or organizational contexts really change your perspective on leadership?
For me, it was really taking the time to get to know the people that you are surrounded by, that are in your new culture or new environment. Also realizing that not everyone moves at your speed. Like if you have an idea and you're like, okay, this is the best idea in the world. And then people are like, where? Like being empathic about where they're coming from. And also being surrounded by so many people from so many different cultures and background, I think made me realize I can always upskill myself as a leader. Like I wasn't born a leader, a competent leader. It's not innate, right, to be relatable and skillful. And so that I had something to learn from everyone in every context. And you kind of need to be like a chameleon, so you change not who you are in the core, but how you present yourself and how you address situations so that you are more relevant to the context you are in.
You brought up so many great things there, getting to know people, pace of, that you move, and the empathy that you need to bring it, and always being a learner yourself in a situation. So the three of you actually met in such a unique way, and it really says a lot about the power of connection and shared purpose in leadership. So I'd love to get into that story of how the three of you met and your experience that you shared. So what brought you together? What made that connection stand out to you so much?
I think so. We were in the process of interviewing for a leadership position, principalship. And I guess as it is the norm in more than one school that I've encountered for leadership position, the school brings the leaders, the top 3 or 4, to the site so that they can themselves see if it's a good match for them. But also the school community can really get to, meet the parents, the teachers, the staff, and the students can meet you. And so I was in the process of, interviews. I had a few interviews, and then I get an email saying, all right, we want to fly you out. There's going to be 3 of you together at the same time. And that was a little bit of a, I was like, what? This is going to be the most awkward thing in the universe. But I guess we all, myself included, but we all, the 3 of us, went into it with a commitment, to make it as collegial or as pleasant as it could be. Because I don't know what the 2, person are going to bring. But then, coming into it, it really felt like we were at a conference with 3 of us.
I remember landing and I turning on my phone, and the first text I received was from Maki, and she invited me out to dinner that night somewhere near the hotel, and it caught me completely off guard. I remember thinking to myself, she's another finalist and she's extending this friendly invitation to have dinner. And I think that really, for me, that really set the tone for our time together. It was a gesture of kindness and support. And I think from the very beginning, it was a positive experience. It didn't feel at all competitive between us or ego driven. I think it just felt like a support. Yeah, like Julie said, we were at a conference supporting each other, sharing our notes and our ideas in the break room. It was a really great experience. It could have definitely started off awkward and felt competitive and more ego driven than it did.
I think yeah, we were being authentic with each other. And I think that was really important. But we also shared our experiences and like we were honest with each other. And I think that really helped. So we were like, okay, like, yeah, did you hear about this? Or did you actually do this? And we compared notes with each other, even during the breakout rooms. And then, shared what we were thinking we were going to do. We had breakfast together every morning, and we had the ride together in the cars, and we had meals together, right? So it just did feel like a conference or a recruitment fair, even when you go to a job fair. And it was very interesting to really hear the experiences of each other and then learning from each other. And they're like, oh, yeah, you had the POP experience, or oh, you did it. Well, I don't think it'll be that much of a problem. It's like this. And so I remember just sharing a lot of our backgrounds. And so that's really very fun. And towards the end, we were very sad that we're going to part from each other.
So at the end, we were joking with each other that they should hire all three of us because we each had strengths, identified what each of our strengths were, and like Jessica can offer this and Julie can offer that, and Maki has this experience. And it was kind of like an inside joke that we joked around about with our like between us. And then at the very end, we joked in that way with the director, and he just sort of looked looked at us. What are you talking about? You're competing right now. But it was just a really pleasant, fun time together, and very supportive, like Maki and Julie said.
I just love that so much because it could have been a really awkward situation that you were together for a period of time, all competing for the same job. And yet, look at you now. You're all successful, all principals of junior schools or lower schools in your respective schools. And it's just a great reminder that leadership isn't just about the roles that we do hold, but also about the relationships that we sustain along the way. And this is just a beautiful connection, both personally and professionally, that you now have. I can really see that your circle of trust has just grown, and it's a space where the three of you can really be honest and vulnerable and really lift one another higher through this experience and beyond. Jessica, there's this idea of the kitchen table, that trusted group of colleagues that really keep you grounded, challenged, and supported. So, how important is that kitchen table in your leadership life? And how do you cultivate and sustain those relationships like the ones you have here, especially when you're leading so far from home?
Yeah. So I learned about the kitchen table sort of concept. It's something I'd always thought about, but never labeled it in that way last summer. I was at the ISS Women's Symposium, and Dr. Fran Perlman led a session about loneliness and leadership, and it really resonated with me. And she referenced this concept of the kitchen table that was in Michelle Obama's book, The Light We Carry. Sort of asking us, who's a part of your inner circle? Who are your closest confidants? Who do you collect and keep close to you? Like, who do you trust and share with? And I always have prioritized that, personally and professionally. I'm seeking connections with others always. It's how I grow. It's how I learn. It's how I ensure I'm supported when challenges arise in life or at work. It's also how I foster a sense of belonging for myself, no matter where I am in the world. It's something I can bring with me, connection with others. Who are the people I belong with, and who's seated at my kitchen table. So if you looked at my CV, you would see that I'm always a part of networks and cohorts. Right now, I'm in two different ones. So even before moving to my current school, I began thinking about who do I want at my kitchen table, and immediately thought of Maki and Julie. We'd had such a positive, also powerful shared experience during that finalist interview. And we built trust with each other during that time. And I knew that they were two people that I wanted to lean on for support, especially as we were all beginning our contracts at the same time in our schools. And they stayed very close and central at my kitchen table throughout the whole year, and even continue to now. So just a big thank you to both of them for playing that role in my leadership development over the past year and few months.
You really talk about that importance of having the network. And there's not always many people at your own school who can relate to what you're going through. And so to have those networks and that kitchen table, and it sounds like your kitchen table is quite big. We're going to need a larger table as you continue to grow in your leadership. But how do you really balance giving support to others at that table while also asking it for yourself?
I would say I have several kitchen tables that are small, and every once in a while maybe they'll connect, but other times they're smaller tables in different spaces. So I've been really fortunate to have reciprocal interactions with those at my kitchen table. I think Maki and Julie are a good example of that, where there are times where we're sharing a very similar experience in leadership, and we can, listen and understand and connect with each other over that. But there are other times where one of them will share an experience they're having and I learn from it. Maybe I haven't experienced it yet, but I learn from it. And other times when I'm going through something and I'm able to ask for help about whatever the specific circumstances are. And I find that in this way, there's a balance. And so when it's a smaller number of people, it helps keep the kitchen table balanced. But like I said, I have several tables with different people at them.
That's amazing. I love this idea of reciprocal leadership because we can learn so much from each other and also be that support for others as well. Mackie, I want to talk a little bit about surrendering to fears, that idea of not needing to have every answer before taking that next step. And I think that's something that so many leaders can relate to, especially in times of transition or uncertainty. How do you embrace those moments of not knowing and still find the confidence to move forward? What really helps you quiet those doubts and trust yourself when you really need to take that path forward that maybe isn't quite clear at the time?
Well, I think for me, it's all about like pulling yourself together and then knowing that it'll be okay and thinking of the uncertainty as an adventure to explore. So, especially when you're going from like one country to another, you have to think of like your logic is not their logic. And so you have to know that before you go in there. Your norm is not their norm. And then to say, you have to ask a lot of questions because you don't know what happens here in this context, in this situation. And I do remember, like, okay, I am not from here, which means that I have to ask a lot of questions and wonder and then learn from the people who have been here. And I think that's so important, but it's scary too, because you're just like, wait, what? What's happening here? So I think that has been my experience where you really have to go in there thinking, this is an adventure. It'll be fine. It'll be different. And I do
Uh-huh.
think that it's so important to keep on smiling because smiles are like universal.
I couldn't agree more. Smiles really can change anyone's day. And you really highlight that context is everything as well. Could you maybe share a specific moment when leaning into uncertainty and rather than just resisting it really led to your own growth?
Sure. So when I first arrived in Bolivia, I had no idea about things like blockades and strikes and forest fires and how anything could shut down the school or you can't go to the school. And even rain, I have flooding on my street like there's no tomorrow. And I cannot even, like, cars can't drive on my street when it rains so much. So when it first happened, I was just thinking, okay, what do I do? So I had to like reach out to the person who was my predecessor, right? And then like asked, what did you do in this case? How did you do this? And then I followed the lead. And after that, I asked teachers for feedback and created like a new kind of online platform and plan where it's a little bit different. It's easier for the students. It's better for the teachers as well, because as we've discussed a little bit, online teaching and learning is so challenging and it is not easy. And so we have to really think about first, what is the best for the students? What do we want them to learn, even remotely? And then what can we do? Because sometimes what administrators I think tend to do is like, we have to have equity amongst the teachers. So everybody has to teach a certain amount and everybody has to do this, right? But sometimes it's about, okay, what do the students need first? And then kind
Mm.
of go with that. And how would it be easier for everyone or helpful for everyone? The experience taught me that leaning into uncertainty is really about learning, adapting, and then preparing for the next part or next situation that might possibly happen.
Yeah, you can't ever get comfortable. You never know what is coming next, unfortunately, in our roles. And we know that there are so many moments that really require us to be resilient The role takes a lot of resilience, the kind that doesn't always come easily. And we are always navigating priorities that are competing with each other, responding to feedback and balancing the needs of students, teachers, and families, often at once, as you're highlighting there, Mackie. And sometimes that also means facing criticism or pushback, even when your intentions are grounded in what's best for the community. So, Julie, how have you managed those moments while staying centered and really staying true to your core values as a leader? What helps you keep perspective when the noise around you is really getting loud?
Yeah, it's not easy. I'm from France, and so I'm used to tough love and honest feedback and being resilient. Like my mom used to tell me, I'm not going to say thank you for a job you should be doing, right? So I'm used to like criticism, but I think it's what Maki was saying. You have to stay true to the mission and vision of the school and what of your students deserve, because they are the population you're serving really at the front foremost. I've accepted that I cannot please everyone or meet everybody's wishes or expectations, and that's okay. It's not my job to make friends, right? But it's my job to help drive the school in the direction that was set by the vision and mission. One thing that I started doing is, so I do want to receive feedback though, because it helps me grow, but I've asked others to read the feedbacks, like the results for me. And so if somebody like summarizes for me the big points of a survey, I think to me, it's being a leader, it's always keep the bigger picture at the front. It's not about me. It's not about me as a person. It's me as a leader to help drive the school forward. Even if I get frustrated at first, right? It's like what we're saying is seeing that your perspective or your idea is not compelling enough for others. And so compromising. Maki said also like going at it with an inquiry in mind, asking questions and being patient, knowing what your sphere of influence is, and then what you can change, but taking everybody on board with you or as many people as you can.
I really love that idea of big picture and really staying curious as you go through your leadership. Really listening to each one of you share your experiences from navigating uncertainty to modeling resilience and leading across cultures, it's really clear that each of you brings such authenticity and also intentionality to your roles. And part of that authenticity comes from how you see yourselves as women in leadership. The lens that we bring as women, the values we hold, the ways we communicate, the ways we take risks, they often shape not only how we lead, but who we are as leaders. So I'd love to ask you, how has being a woman influenced the way that each of you lead?
Being a woman is very different from being a man, I believe, when you're leading. And it's really interesting because in a school setting, you always have a lot more female teachers and then male leaders, right? And so it's always navigating the non traditional kind of structure, maybe if I can say it that way. Early on, I was told that I came across as too soft and that people would, worry about me not making the tough decisions. And then I don't usually come off as the one in charge when you meet me. I was mistaken in another school as a secretary when I greeted one of the person who was visiting school. And so they also sometimes assume I won't be assertive enough to lead in a way that they would expect. But what people don't always realize is that I can make tough decisions, but I can still lead with empathy. And I think that that is the one thing that people don't think about because they have the stereotypical image of a leader. And sometimes it's not about that. And sometimes as a woman, you have to change how you lead because they expect women to do certain things and men to do certain things. And so it is a balance of how you are still authentic with who you are, but at the same time, getting the job done.
My response is very similar to Maki's. I'd say being a woman hugely influences my leadership. I lead with my whole heart and with kindness and care. And I think the bottom line for me is that I'm nice. I'm a nice person. And in my opinion, women have been told just through societal messages and perception of women in leadership that we need to be strong and assertive and not show emotion, not show that we have feelings. And that those things are a sign of weakness, that being nice is a sign of weakness. I've been asked at work before, like, why do you smile so much? Or why are you always so friendly and happy? And those things are, like I said, seen as a sign of weakness at times. But over time, I've learned that for me, being nice and kind and showing that I care about my school and the staff and the students. It's the core of who I am as a woman and as a leader. And I work hard because I care, and I'm kind because I care, and I'm nice because I'm a nice person. And like Maki said, I can still be other things too. So I like to tell myself I can be nice and be a strong leader. I can be kind and have challenging conversations when they're necessary. I can be caring and I can make difficult decisions.
Jess is saying, just be true to who you are. I think for me, I'm not afraid of being vulnerable. I've cried in front of staff when events in previous schools have been hard, or, I can say sometimes I'm having a bad day. And I've had teachers say to me they appreciate that I'm not overly always positive, and I can say, no, I'm actually having a rough day, or I'm super tired today, and I'm being honest. I think one thing that has helped me as a leader to be accepted, or have teachers know that I care, is admitting my mistakes and owning them, not being afraid of saying, yeah, I messed up, or okay, that didn't work, let's try again. And then also admitting I can't do it all. As a new leader, when I was starting, I was like, okay, I'm going to fix every problem and I'm going to help everyone, but I cannot. To me, that came from my role as a mom. So I have two kids. I'm a woman, but I'm also a mom. I think that also affecting how I am as a leader. And I was at a conference too where Fran Pullman, like just the same that Jessica mentioned, said women put hurdles in their way themselves, and saying, when you have a family and you say, oh no, it's not a good time, I can't leave my kids, they need me. And I think for me, going over this and saying, no, actually it's good for my kids to see me pursuing, a career and something I'm passionate about, and being able to do both, being I think a good mom and / also having a leadership role. That has helped me as a leader for sure, and show empathy to the staff when they themselves in their own life are going through things.
It's so interesting that you highlight the hurdles that we often put in front of ourselves, not others putting in front of them, but really ourselves. I think that having that network that we have here that we're talking about today are great resources to help you talk down those barriers to make sure that you can still move forward. And I also really appreciate that each one of you really highlighted something that as leaders, as women leaders, that we often underestimate in ourselves, different traits. So Maki, you with empathy, Jessica with kindness and being nice, and Julie being vulnerable. I think that those are really some of the greatest strengths that women can bring to their roles. And I'm really glad that you highlighted all of those today. So thank you. And now thinking about women who maybe are just starting to see themselves as leader, or who are currently on their trajectory to leadership, or maybe doubting whether they're even ready, what would be some advice that you would give aspiring women to the leadership roles that they're heading towards?
This question makes me think of a quote by Brene Brown, which I think is really beautiful. And it says, I belong everywhere I go, no matter where it is or who I am with, as long as I never betray myself. So my advice would be always be your true self. So show up and say, this is who I am, and this is what I can offer your school.
And for me, if you're interested in a leadership role, just apply, even if you don't check every box in the job description. Take a risk, trust yourself, and don't wait until you check every box. Somebody who sees your potential might hire you.
My advice, it would be first find people who can help you and mentor you around you, who you can learn from, who is somebody who's an example for you. And going back to what Jess was saying, find your kitchen table, somebody who's going to believe in you before you believe in yourself. That's what happened to me. Like Maki says, somebody who's going to champion you and see your potential, because we do tend to self-doubt ourselves, and find somebody who can be a mentor.
Mm-hmm. I love all of those pieces of advice, and I think they're good for no matter what age you are, what stage you are at in leadership, and this idea of just going for it. Even if there's many people going for the same role, you can all be successful beyond that, as we were seeing here today, that all of you have been so successful being principals in your own schools and in your own right. So I want to shift to a part of a conversation that really is at the heart of Lead Her Higher, and thinking about who has lifted us higher, those mentors and colleagues and friends who have helped us see what's possible when we might have even doubted it in ourselves, or as Julie said, we haven't even seen it in ourselves yet. And clearly the three of you represent that to each other. So I'd love to hear from each one of you, who's a woman who has led you higher beyond this group?
So there are plenty of women along the way that, have shaped who I am as a leader, but I'm going to talk about Roberta Weens. And she was the person who saw my potential. And so she was my early years coordinator when I was a teacher in Dubai in a school. And I was the team leader of the team. And she came to me and she said she could see potential in me as a leader. It was my first time being a team leader. And she suggested I go into a master's degree to then pursue this career and get into leadership. But I didn't know because I'm not a native English speaker. So I was like, wow, in international school, I've never had a leader that was not a native. And so, but I did enroll. I'm like, it doesn't harm me to enter a master's degree, right? So I did it. I took my time and then I gained confidence. First, in English writing and reading skills first, and then that I had something to bring. And so I want to thank her because without her push, I don't think I would ever have done it.
Mine, I have three, I'm sorry, but like two is like in one. First one is Kathleen Nagley, who used to be my director when I was a teacher. And she asked me, what kind of leader do you want to be? She saw my potential before I did, like Julie talked about, right? Like I didn't see my potential, but she did. And so she didn't ask me like, do you want to be a leader? She was like, what kind of leader? So she was very clear about that. And then Shannon Hobbs and Monica Medina, who were facilitators of the literacy coaching cohort at CISA. And they taught me so much about leadership skills in this cohort. And so all three have continued to be my mentors on my leadership journey.
I love this question. We talked a little bit before the podcast about also making sure that we acknowledge and celebrate men in leadership who are allies to women. And so I have many, many different women in my life, personally and professionally, who have led me higher. And I feel very fortunate for that. Whenever I'm given a chance, I always seek women as mentors. They inspire me, they motivate me, they understand my journey. I feel a deeper connection with women who are in leadership than with men in leadership as mentors. And at the same time, for me, my own personal journey is connected to a man in leadership who, like Julie and Maki, saw something in me. And I at the time I was a school counselor, and he said, I want you just to take one leadership class. And I was like, no, leadership, it's not for me. I don't want to be a leader. And he just continued to encourage me. And I'd like to name him Dr. James Duval. And we had the good fortune of working together twice. Once when I was working in Barcelona at BFIS, and then again at Riverdale Country School in the Bronx in New York. And he's just played a tremendous role in my leadership development since 2009, so quite a long time. So I'm forever grateful and appreciative of everything that he continues to do for me as a leader. He's on call, so he's not at my kitchen table, but he's on call whenever I need him. That's my go-to.
He's in the living room.
Yes.
Well, hearing about those individuals who have led you higher, it's such a beautiful reminder of the power of mentorship and community. And I know that each one of you are also seeing the potential in others as you lead the way as well, and feeding that forward and to that next generation of leaders. So before we wrap up, let's shift gears once more for a little bit of quick rapid fire with a bit of a mix of leadership and fun to end us off. So Maki, what's one practice that helps you stay grounded in gratitude, even in those really high pressure moments?
So I try to always count my blessings, and I have a thing on my notes called positive daily. So I just jot down 1 to 2 things that I was thankful for or that have been positive that day. And it just could be hot water.
The simple things are sometimes the best things, that's for sure. Julie, what's one book that you've read recently that's really had an impact on your role as a leader?
Well, it's a book we read this year as a leadership team. So all of us read it. It's The Power of Moments by Dan Heath. How you really need to intentionally create moments and experiences that will be remembered by the people who are experiencing it. It's not just happen naturally, you have to plan them. And so I try to remember that for students and staff to create moments that will make a difference, even if it's with one student, so that, and being intentional in that.
It's such a great book. I've read it. The intentionality of those moments that really are core memories for our students are so important. Jessica, what's one piece of advice that you just continually come back to over and over again?
I refer back to my former principal at Riverdale Country School. He reminded me all the time of the importance of humor and finding levity in difficult situations. And I remember at the time we worked together for 7 years at Riverdale, and at the time it was hard. I would feel this sense of urgency of a situation, and I would think, why is he making a joke right now? This is so serious. And now I find myself doing the same with my team. So I find that laughter always helps. It shifts the tone of a conversation, it elevates mood, it helps people connect in a lighthearted way, especially during stressful times. So I'm very thankful to have the experience now and to better understand why he brought humor into those difficult conversations or challenging moments.
Laughter definitely is the best medicine. Maki, what makes you laugh after a tough day?
Comments that students make. The other day, a student told me that I should continue working and save money so that I can retire at age 70. And I was thinking, does she think that I'm 69 or 68? Like, I don't know.
Well, hopefully you don't have to work quite that long.
I was just saying, just the fact that she thinks you have to work till you're 70.
We got to rethink that one, that's for sure.
But it does make you laugh,
So,
right?
Julie, those kids definitely brighten any day, don't they? Julie, if you could switch jobs with someone for a day, who would it be and why?
I don't have a particular one. I just want a job, and I'm not saying that those jobs are less important. A job that you don't have to bring it home. Being a teacher or leader doesn't matter. In education, you bring it home. The students, they're concerned what you could do to be better. And so sometimes I just wanted a job where when you're done at 5, you're done. And then you don't have to think about it till you come back to work the next day, whatever that would be. I don't know.
It's hard when you care so much about the community to not think about it in your off time as well. Jessica, over to you. What's the best song to turn around your day?
I love Natalie Merchant. She's my favorite artist. I've been following her since so I would say These Are the Days by Natalie Merchant. It always brightens my day. The song celebrates the beauty in every moment and just the joy of being present.
So our final question, one that grounds us to really back to where we are and why we are here today. What does the phrase lead her higher mean to you? Maki, why don't we start with you?
How can you mentor other women and elevate them? Who do you see the potential in? We were talking about somebody saw us as leaders. So who can we see as leaders in the future?
It's lead an idea higher. Is the power of collaboration, is that we are all there to collaborate to get the best idea together, or get the school to be a better place. Like the three of us, we each made our own schools better just because of collaborating. So that's what it means to me.
For me, lead her higher means that we're thinking about who's right there behind me, stepping on my heels, and how do I reach back and pull her forward? And asking questions like, can I step aside? Can I allow her to step up? What can I do to get out of her way?
All beautiful responses. And I just want to say, Jessica, Maki, Julie, thank you so much for joining me today. This has been such an enjoyable conversation for me. I've learned so much. Your stories remind us that leadership isn't defined by where we are in the world, but by who we are becoming and by the people that we walk alongside with. Your experience has shown that leadership can be both courageous and compassionate, grounded and global. And I know our listeners will walk away from this conversation feeling inspired, seen, and ready to build their own kitchen table, a space where honesty, laughter, and support fuel growth. Thank you so much. I really appreciate hearing all of your stories today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
I hope you're leaving today feeling inspired by Julie, Maki, and Jessica. Their stories of courage, connection, and resilience are a reminder of the power of lifting each other up. Maybe today you're thinking about creating your own version of a girls' club, your own kitchen table, a space to support, challenge, and grow together. Until next time, lead with courage, lift others up, and always lead her higher.